Begin. Okay, perfect. So, yes, I'm born in a small village northwest of Montreal, about 50 kilometers from Montreal, province of Quebec. So I'm French Canadian, as you may hear. So we lived just in front of the church of our village. And my mother, who was a pianist, not a professional musician, but she played the piano, and she taught the piano to her children. We were seven in my family. And so my mother taught me the piano when I was 9-year-old, but she was playing the organ the Sunday mornings. And we had always recordings of organ playing at home, of orchestra and all kind of classical music, but the Sunday was organ. And so I was already, very, very interested by the organ. And then when I went at the college at 17, we had the choice for a second instrument, and I chosen the organ. And then after I fell in love with the organ, and I switched the piano for the organ as a first instrument. And then at 19, I became a full-time student in organ. That's my organist story. So, yeah, when I was about 15, I always liked to draw, to do some drawings and painting and to do things with my hands, to have a pencil in my hand. And so at 15, I felt compelled to write music. I love creativity. And so I just composed for myself, and I showed my pieces to my mother, and she was very encouraging. And so it never left me after that. I always wanted to study composition. And when I arrived at the Conservatoire when I was 19, I met my organist teacher, who was also an improviser and a composer, and Raymond Davelby. And Raymond Davelby was composing an organ concerto at that time. And so I just fell into the magic, the big composition. I don't know how you say in English, but I never stopped composing. And this teacher, Raymond Davelby, taught me the composition for free. During 7-8 years, he didn't ask me any penny. And he was also my organ teacher. So it was a kind of global training that I had. And for me, it was really, really good.
I was born in Kansas and reared out there, and did my undergraduate degree at one of the state universities in the Kansas system, not University of Kansas, but one of the other universities in the system. And actually, I'm a little bit similar to Rachel in that I was torn back and forth between piano and organ, and I ended up doing a double concentration, which meant I slept very little during my undergraduate years. But it was worth it because my piano teacher when I was growing up had been an extremely thorough technician, gave me extremely thorough grounding in technique. And my college teacher, when I went, even though they did not know each other, his own background was very similar, and he continued that. So I ended up with actually a very advanced piano technique. And that's kept me in really good shape because, like, when I go someplace, like when I came here even, and need to get acquainted with an organ and that sort of thing for spending 6 or 8 or 9 hours in a day practicing, I never wear out physically. My brain does, but I never wear out physically. And then after university, I went to the Army for 3 years. And then when I got out, I knew by that time that I wanted to do organ and church music. So everything after that was either church music related or organ performance related, and I ended up doing, studying organ at Easton School. And that was a treat because really for the first time in my life, once I got there, I really was able to practice for all of the hours I wanted to without being too distracted. Sure. Let me talk about the whole second half, which involves Rachel's piece, but I won't talk directly about that at the moment. We have on the program, there are 4 pieces listed. the first, all of four of the pieces that are programmed there are by organist composers who have played on our series, on our Music for a Great Space series. One is by Jerry Hancock, an American. He passed away a few years ago, but one of the most brilliant improvisateurs in the organ world during his life. And it's a little set of variations on a hymn tune, which is very familiar to most Americans, really. All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. And it'll be a familiar melody, but also with his own very unique harmonic vocabulary and in writing the variations. And then the second piece is a beautiful little lyric lullaby, Taiwanese lullaby by Chelsea Chen, who played here just a few years ago, and some of whose ethnic background, she's American, but some of her ethnic background is Taiwanese. And she's taken, in numerous of her compositions, she's taken some Taiwanese melodies or Taiwanese themes and built on that. And then there's Rachel's piece, of course.
Okay, if I can begin, I can say that I compose a lot on commissions since about 5-6 years. It's almost exclusively on commissions. And what I love about this aspect of composition is that it's always very personal. It's a commission is something for a special event, yes, but it's a piece that's going to stay in the repertoire anyway. But it tells a story. A commission always tells a story, and I think that music has to tell a story. So, for example, this commission by Music for a Great Space, when I played, André told you that I played a recital in 2010, maybe 2011, at Christ United Methodist Church for Music for a Great Space. And I lodged in the house of Lucy Ingram. And Lucy was so welcoming. And I think that Henry, her husband, passed away just a few years before. And so I heard a lot about Henry Ingram, who was the co-founder of this music series. And so all this was imprinted in me. You know, when I received the commission 1 year ago, I thought, oh, it's fascinating because I played there. I knew the organ, I knew André. And André already premiered my organ concerto just a few years after. And so I had really a connection with all this place, all the story of Music for a Great Space and the organ. And so they wanted a piece, of course, you wanted a piece who was celebrating the 30 years of, so a joyful piece, a celebratory piece, a piece who was going to be virtuoso because André Lash is a virtuoso performer, a great musician too. So all these conditions were so clear to me. And it was also a piece in a sort of way in memory of Henry Ingram at the same time, because we wanted to commemorate also the co-founder of this series with Lucy. So I asked Lucy, to depict me the personality of Henry again, to remind me his many facets. And so it's just got me started in this piece like that. So for me, it's a blessing to compose on commissions for all these reasons.
Well, first of all, it's very scary because it's the first appearance of that first hearing of that composition by anyone. When one premieres a composition, it's very scary because you feel like it's like the first impression. It's like introducing someone to someone else. First impressions, and it's like it's got to be a good impression. Because you want the piece to live. And so it's very scary. It's also very scary because, in most cases, the composer's going to hear it. And you think, oh, my gosh, what if I play a wrong note?
I hope I'm not a scary composer.
Oh, you're not. You're not at all. No, you're very welcoming and you're very easy to be around. But it's just, the human condition. We don't want to ruin it for the composer. But I have to say that I think that Rachel has really captured the celebrative nature of this occasion. It really comes through. It's a very celebrative piece. And in the middle section, which is very lyrical, Rachel, I have to say that your ability to write melodic lines is exceptionally strong in this piece. It
Thank
really
you.
is.
Thank
It's
you
very,
so
very
much.
beautiful. And I also, Rebecca, I hope I don't embarrass Rachel, but Rachel, I know you well enough to be able to say you have a sort of playful spirit. You know, you do. You have a very playful spirit in your whole life. You can tell even from your face. And the piece in places, there are moments that are very playful. And I have to say that yesterday I was practicing, it was in a transition section. One of those is marked. Actually, you have a mark, I think, playfully in one place. And I was practicing that section, and I literally, when I started to giggle. I started to laugh because it's just so joyfully playful. It's a very celebrative piece, and one of the things that's important for composers to remember is to try to use the resources of the organ as well as possible. And it's been a big plus to have Rachel writing this when she's played on this organ and remembers it clearly, because she has really exploited the resources very, very well. One of the most frustrating things is when someone who's maybe a really great composer, but they're not an organist, and they don't understand what things feel like and how they go together on the organ. That can be very frustrating. Sometimes pianists will write as if they're writing for the piano, and it doesn't work the same. And it's great when an organist composer, such as Rachel, writes a piece, because they write for the organ, no matter how difficult it is. And I will say very openly, and Rachel knows this, it's not an easy piece. One has to practice it, but there's nothing there that doesn't make sense on the organ. Everything makes sense on the organ. It's obviously an organist wrote it, and that's very gratifying.